Scorpio, welcome to your April 2019 Astro Update. I'm Raina, and this is going to be a very work-oriented month. So I wonder what the word work represents to you, Scorpio. Do you like what you do? Because the sixth house is really featured here. Aries is your sixth house, and the sixth house is about health. So this could be connected to something health related if you are maybe looking to change your diet or change your exercise routine, but it's also the house of your dharma. Your dharma is how you give your service to the world. The sixth house is the house of service, and your dharma is that path which you utilize your talents and serve humanity. And really, I don't even know if we would talk so much about talents, but just service itself. Because the 10th house is career. And when I was first starting out, I was like, well, isn't it kind of redundant, the 6th house, the 10th house? Because both of those we can look at when we're thinking of some sort of job or employment, let's put it that way, employment. However, the 10th house is more about you showcasing yourself on a public stage. So I would think that your talents are more connected to the 10th house. And the 6th house is a job versus a career, which would be the 10th house. And a job can be something that you do in between careers just to pay the bills. But I do feel that since the sixth house is service, that ultimately there's like this spiritual component to it, even though it's an earth house. And in the universal chart, it's ruled by Virgo. Okay. And interestingly, the opposite house is the 12th house, and that's ruled by Pisces. And that is a spiritual house, and that's about, karma, your karmic past, meditation, dreams, and things that are not of this world. Well, anytime that you have two houses that oppose one another, there's going to be some common traits. And sacrifice and service, we could say, are along those lines. The 12th house can be sacrifice, and the 6th house is service. And so they have some commonalities. Now, the 6th house is also the house of your daily routine. And I think that this gets kind of shoved under the rug or not really valued that much by people. And I've come to see how very valuable this is. And I'm hoping that some of you Scorpios will take a look at this area of life during the month of April, because you may get ample I don't know if I would say time, or that's not the right word, ample opportunities to be able to reflect upon this and even change how you do things. And I'll tell you why. Because even if you're working a job, a 6th house, that you're not necessarily enthused about, and you just kind of like wandered into that job, or you weren't thinking too much, you just were able to get a job, or you thought you wanted it and now you realize you don't. You still, in order to get from A to B, you're going to have to construct some sort of plan so that you can get into a situation that is more to your liking. A lot of people are working that 9-to-5 grind. And when they do, they don't really have a lot of time to be able to plan their dream life because they have other things going on after work or before work. So this is where it gets really tricky. And a lot of people, I've seen other people do videos on how to construct your day or your morning, what do they call that, time management or something like that. And, you read the inevitable comments where people will say, well, I work 9-to-5, so this has no bearing on my life because I don't work for myself. And they get very huffy about it because they feel like they're being totally ignored. And my thing is, that may be true, but you have these other available hours. You don't have to sit drooling in front of the television for 3 hours every night from 7 to 10. What if you took 7 to 10 that you usually spend from the I was going to call it the boob tube, going online and starting to research the things that you would like to accomplish, and then start that path, whatever that thing is that you want to do, whether you want to launch your own business, whether you want to, move to a different area, but you don't know much about it, that you start to look at, like, hey, this is what I want to do. What if you want to move somewhere, but you don't have the money? You could get a part-time job. Maybe you could tutor. Maybe you could do something, and you could just, for 2 hours a night, for those hours that you were spending, in front of the television. The point is that you may have more limitations in front of you, but you still have possibilities. So in April, please do consider this. The sun is in this 6th house, starting from the beginning of the month. On the 5th, there is a new moon in the 6th house at 15 degrees of Aries. So planting new seeds about what kind of routine that you want to have. And this can include health, because sometimes your health may impede your ability to do the other things. So at least planning it out, mapping it out, writing it down. On the 10th, Jupiter goes retrograde in Sagittarius. Now, this is going to be your 2nd house of earned income. So does this mean that you're going to have a slowdown? Well, from my own perspective on Jupiter retrograde, but I'm a Sag, so Jupiter may affect me more because Jupiter rules Sag. I have found that there might be something along those lines, but according to what I've read, Jupiter retrograde is still positive because Jupiter is such a benevolent planet. And this is in your area of earned income. So when Jupiter retrogrades, you may find that you have an opportunity to take advantage of something that you missed the first time around. But even if there's a slowdown altogether of all the blessings that Jupiter has been providing you in that 2nd house, the expansion, just remember that this too shall pass. And it also is, it's like, even if it's retrograding in that house, it's still there. So the vibes of what Jupiter represents are, the doors opening in this area of the money that you earn. And in my case, I have experienced where it's not even the money that I earned, that it was just money that I received altogether, just in a general sense. So you may have already experienced this, Scorpio. So don't panic if for some reason after April 10th, you go, whoa, what's happening? It's going to go direct in August. So it's just a temporary little thing here, but it could be something beneficial for sure. On the 17th, Mercury goes into Aries. And I believe that this is Mercury emerging from its shadow, because when it went retrograde, I think it was 29 Pisces. So this is this is 0 degrees of Aries on the 17th of April. So we're finally out of that Mercury shadow, 6th house. So Mercury rules the 6th house in Virgo, and therefore diet is definitely maybe on your mind. Maybe you're researching something that has to do with health matters, or with maybe you're just like talking to employers and you're looking for a job. That's always possible. You may have already gotten a job with the new moon in that time frame. A couple days later, we have the full moon at 29 Libra. This is the second of 2 full moons in Libra. Both of these are happening in your 12th house. And, you have an affinity with the 12th house, Scorpio, because of the fact that Pisces rules it. And in your chart, the 12th house is Libra. So watch your dreams. Pay attention to them. I would say now, for this particular full moon, pay attention to dreams that can help you solve your problems, because the first one was at 0 degrees, and I almost think that full moon in your 12th could have been prophetic. And these are like this one might be like closure. This is a great time to kick a bad habit, by the way, because the full moon is a time of purification, and the 12th house is the house of self-undoing, including addictions. But this is a 29th degree. So it's like, you quit smoking 10 times, and then the 11th time it takes, because it was finally time. Those other times were like warm-ups to the final quitting of the habit. If you've ever read a tabloid, and you've read about a movie star or a rock star who goes into rehab, and you just keep hearing about them going into this rehab, that rehab, and you roll your eyes and you think, oh God, they're never quitting this substance. That's the nature of addiction sometimes. Sometimes people, they get addicted to something, they drop it like a bad habit, and then they never pick it up again. For some people, it does take multiple times of being without it and then coming back to it for them to finally put it aside. And to me, I don't criticize people for that so-called method. It really isn't a method. It's even relationships, addictive relationships, because there is still a pull. There's something that is providing the person where they feel the need to go back to it. Okay. And addiction is a tricky business, and it's easy to judge. But if you've ever been there, you know that it's a process sometimes. And so this may be, if you have struggled with an addiction, this may be the time when you're finally liberated from it. And that would be wonderful. You may have felt a month ago the inkling, the first stirrings of breaking that habit. And maybe the awareness of why you even need to do so. Because somebody like a Scorpio tends to be kind of rigid, especially if you have Mercury in Scorpio, in your thought patterns. And it's like, no, I'm not going to. There's like almost a defiant quality too, because you're ruled not only by Pluto, but by Mars. And Mars tends to be kind of rebellious sometimes. On the 20th, the sun goes into Taurus, goes into that 7th house of committed partnership, and you're going to see other personal planets going in there, and that enhances your committed relationship, or if you have clients that can, give you that focus on their well-being and your relationship with them. Venus goes on the same day, Venus goes into that 6th house of health. And I always joke, because Venus sometimes can bring money to a particular house. So, it could be a raise, I guess. Maybe you get hired at a job and you're making more money now. But it can also be spending money, especially kind of high ticket items, because Venus loves luxury. And I always joke about buying a Vitamix because, in terms of blenders, they're kind of the Cadillac, or maybe that's an old fashioned, maybe like the Lexus of blenders. And you might be like really wanting to do something for your health that improves your appearance. Venus is about beauty. And if you're in the workplace, it could be feeling that sense of harmony in the workplace. If you were somewhere else before and there was a lot of infighting, this may feel so much better, like a relief. Now, at the end of the month, we're going to have 2 retrogrades of outer planets. Pluto is retrograding in Capricorn on the 24th, and Saturn is retrograding in Capricorn on the 29th. So this is both in your third house. And of course, this is a general reading, so I'm just doing it as a universal placement. Mileage may definitely vary. But the third house is the house of siblings, the house of your local area, your neighbors, but also communication, writing, teaching, learning, yada, yada. If you're a Scorpio who has been writing a book, you may find that especially if you are a Scorpio who has been kind of doing an autobiographical type of fiction, that it goes really kind of dark, where you start to write and it's like with Pluto retrograde, you might be kind of like incorporating into the book some of the darker experiences of your life. It could also be something with siblings where perhaps there has been, now this with the Pluto transit, this would be for the last 11 years. Maybe you've had a power struggle with siblings, and now it's coming out that you realize, maybe you realize one of your siblings or more than one have been the golden child if you have a narcissistic parent. And it took you this long to, maybe you're in your 40s or beyond, to figure this out, that you were not treated as fairly as they were. That you were the black sheep, or the scapegoat, if you will. And, because this Pluto, this is like psychodrama. And when Pluto goes retrograde, the shadow comes out even more. So, Pluto isn't anything to play around with when it's direct. But when it's retrograde, it kind of like is more internalized, as all the retrograding planets are. So it becomes more about that inner stuff that is going on. And again, everything, if you can look at your life as always being done for your highest good, then you've got this. I mean, I went through Pluto in my natal chart in my 8th house, the house that it rules. And, at that time, I wasn't even paying attention to transits. So I was like blissfully unaware. So I'm not going to try to over-dramatize this. And Saturn retrograding. Now, this is why I said if you're doing anything that is book related or even like blog related, internet based, that the 11th house is internet, but the 3rd house can also be, because it is a primary form of communication these days. And you might be working on something that is not quite working out. You may have to redo it with Saturn retrograde, or some kind of a training that you got into and maybe you didn't learn everything that you should have learned. I mean, this could even be something more spiritually based, like Reiki healing. Maybe you went and you got your first couple of attunements and you're like, I want to do it again. I feel like I didn't get the full essence of it. And I've heard of people who do go back and take further attunements, even though, of the lower variety. And it could be just something like that, where you feel like you were trained at something, but not to the level that you should have been. Now, having these two heavy planets in the 3rd house in general for you, Scorpio, may be a time when you feel like you have to establish yourself in terms of something to do with finding your voice and sharing your voice. Maybe Scorpio to me is a very powerful sign, But everybody has a past. And some people, especially if they have a past of abuse, even the strongest person can get intimidated when they're a child by abuse. So there may be something where you didn't feel like you had a voice and now they can't shut you up. But what you want to do, and when I say a voice, I mean you could be doing something online, like a website, a blog, or a YouTube channel, or even, like I said, a book, but be disciplined. Saturn wants you to be disciplined. So when you say things, make sure that you are saying things that are in accordance with your values and that are responsible. Because Pluto is here, don't use this as an opportunity to vent and to purge in a way that is undisciplined and unthinking. And what can happen, I feel, when Pluto comes into a particular house is that there can be this extreme quality of it, an obsessive quality. So if, it's kind of like Scorpio itself, because Pluto is one of your rulers. So this is you along with Mars. And so Pluto, to me, is like, or Scorpio as a sign, is an extreme sign. There's not a lot of black and white in Scorpio, as far as I'm concerned. Now, it's funny. I was just thinking, I had a girlfriend who was a triple Scorpio, sun, moon, and rising. And she once said to me, life isn't black and white, because apparently she thought I was being that way, when in fact, that is really how Scorpios think a lot of times, is that they either really love something or they really detest it. There's no real gray area or middle ground. And this is also because you are a water sign. So your emotions really take, the lead, and then you're a fixed sign. So that there tends to be that kind of difficulty in being fluid about things, including your emotions. They just kind of like crystallize. And so anyway, what I would say is you may have been keeping your mouth shut about something, and now you just can't shut up about it because it's like that purging. You just want to get it out. And it may not be appropriate. It may not be, other people may not be ready to hear it all, whatever your truth is. And so you have to be disciplined, and you have to even if you've been holding something inside for many years, you have to be willing to keep in mind your audience, what other people are ready to hear. Because this could be family related. This could be with your siblings or cousins, aunts and uncles are the third house. And you may be, and you did have the nodes going through the fourth house. Like you had the south node in, let's see, last year, the north node was in, what was it in? It was in Leo, right. The north node was in Leo, and the south node was in Aquarius, and that's your fourth house of home and family. So there may have been something karmically related to the mother, to the home, the past couple of years. And now that the south node, the south node, I didn't tell you that, your karmic past transiting through that third house, along with Pluto and Saturn. What a party, eh? That A is for my Canadian viewers, because I realize I say A sometimes, and I'm not Canadian. But I also realized that my paternal grandmother was from Canada, but I never remember her saying A. My father used to say A though, but whatever. I digress. So that's very interesting. So you have the south node in that third house too. So this is quite a little party going on here. And I don't know what to tell you, Scorpio. It's just, if you, let me just put it this way. If you have been clashing with siblings, and maybe this is a long time coming, I'm not saying, or cousins or aunts and uncles, and maybe like, okay, what if an uncle, you had some kind of sexual abuse? You know, Pluto is, or a sibling, could be a sibling too, or cousin. You may finally be ready to share that, or something gets triggered and you just like, it's just like spills out of you. And who knows, you know, it may be time, even though the South Node is there and you may have some dealings with this person from another lifetime, who knows? But the point is that you want to be disciplined. You don't want to be out of control. And I think with Saturn retrograding, you want to really think about how you are dealing with whatever this issue is, and to make sure that you are doing so in a way that serves you and really, you know, doesn't complicate your life. Okay, that's what I have for you, Scorpio. I didn't expect to go this long, but I do think that that's kind of interesting what you've got going on there. And if you would like a personal reading, looking at your natal chart, I do this for people, for clients all over the world, and I would love to do it for you. And I do look at, you know, with the full natal chart, I'm looking at your, you know, what I'm talking about here, but not just the transits, where your natal, you know, you're a Scorpio, but where is that? Where is that in your natal chart? It could be in the first house. You could be very gregarious and be a Scorpio. I don't usually think of Scorpios as gregarious. And what is your rising sign? If your sun in Scorpio, you may have a Leo rising sign, and you're very outgoing, extroverted, warm in a very tangible way. Scorpio's kind of like, if somebody has Scorpio rising, they tend to be kind of standoffish, maybe a little bit suspicious of new people. Is this person going to betray me? What's going to happen? So it's very interesting. I love to do it, and it also includes looking at some of the astrological trends for the coming year. Like, where is your natal Pluto? I'm talking about, this is for sun and rising, but it doesn't necessarily correspond with your personal chart. So that's why I always say it's a general reading. Okay, you guys. Well, the link is below to my website. It's rainandmoonastrology.com. Take care. Have a great month. Bye.